What's going on, podcasters and YouTubers? This is Hob here, one of your hosts from the Real Fan Review, coming out of Long Island, New York. With me today, we have my brother, your brother, B.
What's up, everybody? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, we have our man in the chair, Al.
How's it going, everybody?
Oh, I hope everybody's doing good, especially after last week's phenomenal, amazing. I don't want to give it away. We're going to do the non-spoiler review for Across the Spider-Verse.
Fucking sucked.
Yeah, right, Brandon. You were fucking smiling from ear to ear when that movie ended. So we're going to talk really quickly, non-spoiler about the movie, and then we'll get you into a spoiler review for the people who have not seen it, don't want it ruined from themselves. I can understand, especially with a movie that's good as this one was. So let's jump right into it, and then maybe we'll get into some stuff about the Transformers Rise of the Beast. I apologize to those who heard last week's episode who thought that The Flash was coming out this week. It's not. It's next week, not this week. So next week's podcast will be about The Flash. Getting you guys ready for The Flash. But this week, again, let's just jump into that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Brandon, I just mentioned it, man. You were smiling from ear to ear. Tell me, give me a non-spoiler review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
It just worked. You know, everything that we talked about in the last episode about my fears about just it not being as good as the first, and they try to do too much to make it as good as the first.
Right.
No worries there.
Yeah.
They connected everything from the first movie and just built up the story from there. The actors, the characters, the settings, the art, animation, the music, everything was just on point. It was perfect. There was never a lull in the movie. I never at one point thought, oh, this is where we like take it down a notch and it just kind of sit there. You never just sit there. You're always watching something happen. And I just thought the story was great. Just the levels of human connection that the story makes alone to connect the viewers, then alone to connect the characters is incredible. I'm happy that I was wrong about certain events of the movie, and the way that it turned out instead was way better than I can imagine. I honestly think this is one of the best Spider-Man movies that we've had ever. Like, it just, for being an animated movie, it comes to show you that a lot of these animated movies, they have no reservations when it comes to what they can do with it. You know, I think about, we talked about this maybe a couple of years ago. DC, they had their animated universe, and it culminated with that Justice League Dark War movie that I was telling you guys about. And that movie was not afraid to go places that no DC live action movie could do. And I felt that movie was incredible for that fact. And the same thing translates here, where this movie, the worlds, the areas, this was something that you kind of expected from the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and we didn't get that. And here you have this animated movie that does this, and it just worked, and it was great. And so I was blown away by this movie from beginning to end. I'm excited and anxious to see the conclusion, this third one. You know, it hurts me that we have to wait almost a year to see it. But really, real kudos to everyone involved in this movie. It was just incredible.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's probably one of the best movies I've seen this year, if not the best movie I've seen this year. Very surprised with it. Very I almost feel like just calling it or saying it's an animated movie is not doing it justice. It's a movie, and it's a great one at that. Because, I mean, I think Pixar was kind of the first people to kind of change the way people think about animated movies, because their movies are just spectacular too. Some of the stuff that they put out there. But this movie, just like Brandon said, kind of surprised me. I mean, the first one completely surprised me because I didn't expect it to be that good, that deep, and that well written. Well, this one was just as good, just as deep, and just as well written. This movie was fantastic. I gotta tell people who love comic books, there are so many different scenes, and the way that they show different universes, and even the first 10, 15 minutes of this movie has nothing to do with Miles Morales besides kind of like little nods to him and mentioning him, but it really has nothing to do with him, and it was amazing. There was so much cool stuff that I want to talk about when we get into the spoilers, but I'm completely floored by this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I actually saw it twice. I saw it again on Sunday with the kids, and I was just like, you guys want to see Spider-Man, trust me. So we made sure we made it happen. It might have been too long for my kids, though. At around the 2-hour mark, they were like sitting up the opposite way, and like, is this movie almost over? I'm like, how are you not watching this? But yeah, I actually absolutely love this movie, man. Al, talk to me, man. What's your thoughts on non-spoiler review for this?
Yeah, not spoiler. Like the movie was ridiculous. Like the visuals. I mean, like you guys have been saying, it's an animated movie. Everybody can't help but you have to call it an animated movie. But I really more want to just, like you said, call it a movie. Yeah. Because the animation point is more towards bringing out emotion. Like there's scenes where just the colors that they chose to use, convey the emotion as well as what's being said in the dialogue. So the visuals of it being animated lend it very well to letting you know what was going on, because they were able to do so with such visual expression, in addition to just like facial expressions if it was a real life person. Yeah. The showing of what universe you were in because of the scheme that they were using for the drawings, for the coloring, just helped to better represent, in my opinion, the vastness of the multiverse, because you were visually able to just see right off the bat whether one was more pixelated, whether one had a certain drawing scheme, whether one was more like duotone and so forth in the coloring. So I thought it was ridiculous. And the way they were able to blend in 100 and something different Spider-Man,
right.
And you didn't feel lost. Like you felt like it was working. Every time you saw a different Spider-Man, it felt like, oh, wow, but it didn't lose the message of the movie. It didn't feel like they were cramming in too much. And in fact, it felt like it helped the story in the sense of letting you know how vast this multiverse is going, or Spider-Verse is going. And they were still able to dive deep into some of these versions of Spider-Man. Like I had never heard of punk rock Spider-Man, but now I want to see more of him.
Hobie.
With the way, So and then Miles Morales, you get a deeper story of him and the family, a better understanding of what's going on. And what's the main Spider-Man 2099? You get an expression of him and how he came about, and they did such a good job of telling so much of this story that even though it was over 2-something hours long, and I forgot this was a part one. So when the ending came, I was like, when you really think you should be wanting the movie to finish, like you're like, no, what? Are you kidding me? So
right.
They did a good job. Yeah, man. I mean, we were saying again, for an animated movie, it does a better storytelling than some of these live action movies. And it makes you question, like, is it really the writing? People are saying, oh, it's just, what's going on? Is it comic book fatigue? Is it this? Is it that? I really think it's the writing, because I left that movie very excited to see the next one.
Absolutely.
So it's more of what you're putting into it, and you can see with this one that they really made sure they put in everything they had.
Yeah, man, absolutely, Al. And then I guess the final thing on this before we go into the spoilers, Al, what's your recommendation on it? Because I know where I'm headed. Where are you headed with this recommendation?
Oh, you have to see it. And like I said, I'm already jealous that you saw it a second time, because I've been trying to figure out how I can make it to the theater to see it again.
Yeah.
Before they pull it, because this experience has to be seen in a theater on the big screen with the Dolby sound. Like you have to experience the whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely go see it. Go see it in the theater. Go see it again. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's a need to see it, need to buy it. That's what it is for me, man. I mean, once this thing comes out on the 4K, bro, I'm bringing it home. You belong in my collection. So the movie's fantastic, man. I really enjoyed watching it, even the second time, because I have this issue where when I'm watching a movie for the first time, I'm almost trying to figure out where it's going to see if I can catch something in the background or whatever. The second time is just pure, just enjoying it for what it is. And I enjoyed it just the same, man. I was really floored by it, man. There's a lot of great scenes, a lot of great moments. Fantastic movie. Yeah, you need to see this movie. I think even if you're not a comic book fan, or if you're not a fan of the Spider-Verse, or you're not into the Miles Morales, you got to give this one a shot, man. Because I mean, even if you didn't see the first one, it kind of clues you into what happened, and it's just a great movie, man. Honestly, B, how about yourself, man? What you giving it over there?
Oh, you need to freaking see it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
especially just for the ending 007-esque end credits. That was very, very cool.
Yeah, very, very cool, man. Yeah, guys. So, I mean, listen, that's going to be us talking about the non-spoiler way. And we really want to get into this movie because, you know, when we saw the movie Thursday night, we were talking and saying a lot of stuff. But at the same time, it's not like we delved deep in that moment. It was like almost midnight, so it was time to go home. But we're going to get into it right now and talk about all the things that we loved, all the specific stuff that we can talk about now in the spoiler section. For those who have not seen it, please pause, come back to us. Or if you have seen it, come along for the ride to remember this movie and just listen to see if we have different or different takes on some of these things that were happening in this movie and how we felt about them. So let's get right into the non-spoiler there, Al. So tell me, man, what was your favorite part of this movie? What worked for you in this movie?
Going back to what I said with the non-spoiler, was just the visuals. Like Gwen Stacy, when we saw her in her world, the way they had her more like, I guess, a watercolor type design of how they were painting the world. When she went into her room, you saw it was like very all dark colors, blues, to represent, you know, her emotion. And then when the father came and they had that embrace, it turned to a pink and colorful, and then started to spread.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was like little visuals like that that I just loved the way they drew you into the story and the emotion and everything that was going on, just with little subtle things like that, like just the coloring of the setting. The fact that they had like Miles Morales was more comparable to the other realms, was more realistic, was more of a solid actual cartoon type look for me. But then you go to other ones and it's like flat. You know, the way they drew the Spider-Man India, that was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
The way that animation was, but it let you know you were in a different universe, let alone the fact that you were obviously seeing a different Spider-Man. Just the drawing, the way the visuals were being presented, it made me keep wanting to see all of the little nuances and the changes that they were making each time there was a different universe, a Spider-Verse, or a different spider character,
and how they were from. Just by the art
from
style.
Their visual. Yeah. And it led to later in the movie, knowing that something was off, because like when you saw the Go Back Home machine or whatever it was called, when it sends Miles, like right off the bat, because of that, you knew something was different.
Right.
So yeah, okay. So that was what I kept looking at, and it kept drawing me in and keeping my attention. And, you know, I guess sometimes in long movies like this, you can kind of drift off once in a while. But even when there was a quiet moment, the visuals just kept you in.
Yeah, man. How about for you, B, man? What really stood out for you in this movie?
You know, I have to say, just like Al, one of the first 15 minutes, that opening scene with Gwen's backstory, while like truly that's not really needed, it was really incredible. I thought that her whole storyline there, the whole Peter Parker, you know, being bullied and then turning himself into the lizard, and then her accidentally killing him, and that whole thing right there was just really incredible. And just like Al said, it's really the touch of the watercolors that really bring you in and kind of like enchants you in it. I thought that scene alone was beautiful. It was really great. But then it was also the intensity later on in Nueva York with Miguel O'Hara. And, you know, it's basically when Miguel O'Hara and Miles Morales, they're on that like flying train, and Miguel is trying to convince like Miles in a very aggressive way, like you can't ruin the canon kind of a thing. Right. And I just thought that scene, the way it played out with Miles like saying like, you know, I got all y'all here, right? And then he jumps. That scene was so well written, and then the visuals with it were so perfect.
Yeah, man.
I thought that scene was breathtaking. It was great.
Yeah, man. I got a second everything that you guys are saying about the visuals, because the first thing that stood out to me is exactly what Al was talking about and what you had mentioned in regards to Gwen Stacy's story. The first 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, we're not even dealing with Miles Morales. This shit is off the hook. The watercolors. How about like you said, Al, the moment that Spider-Gwen hugged her dad and then the colors brightened up and it was like a watercolors. I was like, this is going to be crazy. And sure enough, it just kept going from there. The first villain that we see is the Vulture, and he's in a Da Vinci-esque art. I thought it was so cool looking. I was like, this is going to be awesome. Everybody's going to look like they're from a different place. And it was just, I was floored by it. And again, that's even before the goddamn movie truly started with Miles Morales' story. And I'm like, this is going to be crazy. Sure enough, then we have, is it Jessica Drew is the character, the Spider-Woman? Yeah, right? So Jessica Drew jumps in, and so does, you know, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099 jumps in to help out with Gwen Stacy's issue. And you just, they're just Spider-Men. They're Spider-Man people. You know, they're quippy. They make the jokes. They're saving people. Even there's a point where Gwen Stacy's like doing all this stuff to save the people in the bottom of the museum because a helicopter's falling down. And Miguel O'Hara, he says, oh, I was about to do that. You know, because of course you were. You're all Spider-Man. That's what Spider-Man does, right? And it's just so cool, and the way that they handled everything. And again, the art style everywhere was amazing. There's a couple of characters like Spider-Man from, is it the Stone Temple Pilot universe? Or is it the
Spider-Punk?
Spider-Punk? What template was that, Brandon? What is this, the Stone Temple Pilots or the Sex Pilots? What?
I know his universe. He is actually from London, and the Green Goblin is the president of the U.S.
Yeah, Hobie Spider-Man was so freaking cool and amazing, and just, you know,
and that was Daniel Kaluuya, right?
That's Daniel Kaluuya for sure. Yeah, man. And I'm sure there's a bunch of secret like people who were in the movie like voicing some of the Spider-Man. I understand one of the guys from Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Brooklyn 911 was, what's the guy's name? Andy Samberg. He was the Scarlet Spider-Man. Ben Reilly. Oh, I'm gonna look.
Yeah, he was Ben Reilly.
Even Ben Reilly's art looked amazing. But we'll get definitely talking to the Spider-Man stuff like that. But again, I think the thing that stole me away was the story itself. Like, there was even emotional points with just Miles Morales' mom talking to Miles. There was one point I looked at Al and I go, my man, why am I about to tear up? Like, she was just being such a good mom and being like, hey, I see you want to go out there and chase after her or go wherever she's going. Just remember to come home. You know what I mean? Like, just don't forget, no one's going to love you like we love you. Don't let anyone tell you don't belong somewhere. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's beautiful. Like, I loved the words that were being used and just the small touches there, man. It's just overall incredible story here. So let's get right into the main aspect of it. The main person we came to see in this episode was Miles Morales. How'd you feel his story played out from beginning to end?
You know, I think it was really cool to see him grow up from the first movie. You know, not only was he taller, but he was Spider-Man at this point. You know, he was really being Spider-Man, and just his development as even just he's a teenager, he's 15 and he's Spider-Man. He has the responsibilities of being Spider-Man, but also being a kid, and a kid who has a bright future on his hand. And so, it was really cool to see that kind of counter trade in the beginning of his parents trying to instill those responsibilities in him. And on the other hand, he knows the responsibilities he has, but he has these other responsibilities. And it's that duality of like, they don't know about my second life. And that came to a head for me. That was a cool scene when his father and him were going against the Spot. And, his father was all bummed out because Spider-Man just reminded him of his son, and he was like, I'm worried that I'm losing my son because I can't keep up with him. We don't connect the same way. I'm doing the best as I can. And Miles says Spider-Man, he's like, well, maybe you should get off his ass. And like, that was great. I love that scene a lot, but that was like such a cool duality of like the father and the son. And, I think that was a great storytelling moment.
Gotcha, man. How about yourself, man? I mean, we watched Miles Morales in the last one kind of just discover himself and become Spider-Man. And this one, he's Spider-Man and he's just living his best life and doing what heroes do, Al.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that I liked was there was that arc, because in the beginning of the movie, he's more, I don't want to say cocky, but I felt like he was very confident, like to the point where he was not paying attention to the school, like even though he knew what he wanted to do and he was obviously very intelligent, like it was affecting the school to the point where the teacher was saying, he's got to focus and he's got to come, she was basically telling the parents, draw him back in because we don't know what to do with him. There's no story for him because he was trying to isolate himself and focus more on being a Spider-Man when he was outside. So, and you see him going around, he's, just going full force. I mean, wasn't he eating a hot dog with his mask up while trying to fight the Spot in the bodega?
Yeah, it was like a beef patty.
Yeah. And then he makes the deal with the owner. He goes, how much I owe you for this? He goes, nothing if you get rid of this guy or something. So it was, and then you see that conceit and cockiness fade into more of a, okay, I'm not alone, and more into the teamwork of let me work with the other Spider-Man and get this resolved and get this taken care of. So it was great seeing that arc to the point where, he went from, I'm just doing this on my own. I can't rely on anybody because, he had to keep everything a secret. He couldn't bring his mom and dad in. He had, even his roommate, he just had to keep isolated. And, so to show that PlayStation, who was playing Spider-Man on the TV, it was pretty ridiculous. Was it one or two? I just couldn't tell.
I heard it's part 2 that he was playing.
It was part 2 he was playing.
Yankee made us know that he was not the man in the chair.
No, he definitely wanted no parts. No parts.
No, not at all. But yeah, but like B said, it was nice seeing that he had grown up. He matured a little. But it was also good seeing that he was able to move, and the fact of when faced with the news that of why he was not included, because remember in the beginning he was taking offense that all these other Spider-Men were in this secret, what was it, small commando unit.
Yeah.
And he's like, meanwhile there's 100 of them, like he's like, yo, why am I not being included? So to go from there to feeling like he was part of it at the end, I thought was a good arc, and makes me want, interested to see how they play out this final one. But in terms of him as a character, I was pleased with how they gave him an arc, considering how many other arcs they had to portray in the movie. So I thought that they did him good in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that they kept it true to who he was in the last film, and if not, made it even more realistic. Like they said, what, a couple months had passed, or a year? I think it was a couple months had passed since the last one that they saw him in. But just his belief in himself, and again, I'm sure the words from his mom stayed in his mind. The fact he was like, "Stop calling me a kid. Stop telling me what my story is." Like I just loved his personality and the way that he carried himself throughout the entire movie, or the way that they wrote this character, because it's not a real person and all that stuff like that, or
Mhm.
it's not a real even. It's all animated. It's a cartoon, man. But I loved it, man. I loved the way that he was just displayed on the screen, man. And just again, there's so many great things about him in the way that he feels, thinks, shows his emotions, expresses his emotions, handles the issues that are in front of him, and just his gusto, bro. I mean, like, even like, again, I don't think he had a plan either when he was trying to escape all of them, but but he figured it out. He figured it out just like all
Mhm.
Spider-Men do. We haven't really said much. I mean, Brandon brought up Spot, but that is our villain of the story. Besides, and I don't want to say they're villains, but I mean, Miguel O'Hara pretty came close to being a villain, especially on that train scene. Now he really
Yeah.
came across to me like, yo, dude, you're a little too aggressive. For you guys supposed to be the good guys. You're really throwing some blows there, bro. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
those claws look really, really sharp. So anyway, but Spot is our villain, and to be honest with you, the way they played Spot out in this movie was amazing. When we first meet Spot, he is the villain of the week kind of villain, right? Even before we got the movie, I think I had mentioned, I was just like, Spot. Like, I remember reading about
Yeah.
him in comic books, and my sons have like a Spider-Man book that has a bunch of little 5-minute stories, and Spot is one of them. And I'm like, who the hell cares about Spot? But dude, they make you care about Spot, dude. And like,
Mhm.
you realize the kind of threat he can be if he gained more power. And again, they started off with Spot being this joke. I mean, he even kicks he kicks himself in the ass. It's just hilarious. And then you just see where his powers can go to.
Mhm.
I mean, Al, tell me, what did you think about Spot and the way he came across in this movie?
I thought it was a great story in the sense that it's funny how one little thing can domino
Mm,
and create someone like the Spot, because like
mhm.
they show the quick story as to how he became, and they show Miles throwing the bagel or donut or something that
Bagel,
hits
the
him in the
bagel from the
face,
last one, from the first
in
movie.
the face, and then he's in the background during the collider incident, and then that just escalates into creating him the way he is and why he has the animosity towards Miles Morales. So
Mhm.
it's funny in the sense that these little nuanced parts of a story can be made into a great story if you wanted to. Because
Right.
now you have this one guy who was in the background of the first movie. And to your point, if left alone, could have probably been just all right, I'm just going to keep stealing money to live. But because of his continued interaction with Spider-Man, it motivated him more and more to become a, a bigger and badder villain, to the
Mhm.
point where he ultimately becomes the main villain of the story. So, and it is funny is I was in the store the other day buying my daughter a toy, and I'm seeing the toys for the movie, and I'm seeing Spot. I'm like, who the hell is this Spot guy? So I thought he was a throwaway, character from the movie, and
Right.
meanwhile, he's the main guy. And and when you counter that with the what was his name, Miguel O'Hara, the
Yeah, Spider-Man
Spider-Man
2099.
2999. Like I thought he was going to be the bad guy, because at one point they even show him being a vampire. Like I didn't understand when Gwen described him as a vampire, but then later in the movie they show him like he was about to do like a bite on somebody.
On
Like they
Vulture.
showed
When
him,
he had Vulture in the
yeah,
air.
like he was turning into like a vampire and he was going to bite him, and then the helicopter came and
Yeah.
you never
He said, I'm
see
a
that
good
again.
guy.
So
And
I
the guy
was,
goes, you don't look like a good guy.
you don't look like one.
Yeah, man.
Kids, yeah, there was so much in terms of that, and it's so much story that I feel like they still can flush out with the third one.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of Spot, like I like the fact that they took somebody who is nobody in the first one
Right.
and showed how little droplets can make even that stranger in the background become the main villain. So I thought they
Yeah.
did a great job with Spot.
Yeah, I mean, B, you read comic books a lot. You probably heard of the Spot before as some like minor villain. What they did in this movie to make Spot somebody of like, whoa, reckoning. Like we gotta watch out for the Spot in the next one. How'd you feel about Spot in this movie?
I thought it was a great job. And like to Al's point, I cracked up when I saw the video of the first movie when, the guy in the background that gets hit with the bagel is the fucking Spot. And I'm like, that really happened. Like it wasn't like a throwaway, like that actually happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And kudos, number one, to them being able to make all of these connections from the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And make it important, almost as if like you're like, have you been planning this for a while? Because it just connected too well. And so for the Spot, I think that every scene he was in, it lent very well to his development, and it was very cool. And like even when he was in Mumbattan.
Mumbattan, yes.
Yeah, he was so good, and this like it like Al said, every time he met up with Miles Morales, he just got more incentive to be the villain. The more he got embarrassed, the more he lost, the more he started to incentivize that he needed to win. And to get to the end of the movie, well, after he gets the collider in Mumbattan, to see how powerful he got, and then to not see him for the rest of the movie, I'm like, what the fuck? I see this guy. And especially, him, that scene before we last see him again, when he's like, I'm going to take everything from you that you took from me. And you get the flash of Miles losing his father. And like, it almost as if like he saw it too, was like, okay, that's what I've got to do.
Right.
And to now be like, leave him alone because the rest of the movie's gonna be Miguel O'Hara. I'm like, what the fuck? I need to see the Spot again. Like, what? I don't want to wait a year to see what the Spot's gonna do.
Yeah, because after Mumbai, we seriously didn't see him again till the ending when he popped up in the what verse? The 1412. I forgot what Spot Miles' real universe is.
1610.
1610. Yeah. So I'm like, oh boy. And then, of course, now when he comes out, he's in the black instead of in the white. And you hear the violins going off. And I'm like, oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, man. And again, and you would figure like the main villain disappears after what? The first 45 minutes, first hour of the movie. We still have another hour and 20 minutes. And we're fine without him. He was amazing for the first hour. And then it's like, he's not there the rest of the movie. What was in place of that? You know what was in place of that? The freaking multiverse of Spider-Man. That was amazing. Oh, Jesus. That was so awesome and so cool. And I think so well done. This whole thing with the Spider-Man, and then you guys seen the commercials, how many different Spider-Man there are. You've seen the trailers. There's legitimately about 100 or so, if not more, Spider-Man in this movie. And they're all different incarnations, different variations, different verses. There's a freaking Lego Spider-Man in the movie, and it doesn't look stupid. There's the freaking doppelganger Spider-Man. There's a Spider-Man on a horse. The horse is wearing a mask. There's robot Spider-Man. There's so many different Spider-Man. I have to ask you, B, what was your favorite Spider-Man in the background or in part of this story that you saw besides Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy?
Oh gosh, I have to say one of my favorite Spider-Man in the movie. Not only is the Spectacular Spider-Man, so he was the one who was the cartoon drawn one,
the one from
that
the
like
MTV
had a little
show.
cameo and everybody cheered.
Yeah.
I loved his cartoon, but I think honestly, oh man, this is tough. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. Is one of my favorite Spider-Men just because the story is so badass for him. But I will have to say that my favorite Spider-Man that I saw was the actual original 2099 suit, which was funny because Miguel O'Hara was saying that he was the only one, but they put the Spider-Man 2099 like right next to him in a bunch of scenes. And he was the Spider-Man suit. What happened?
You were saying that in the theater. You're like, that's the one right next to him.
Yeah, he was standing next to him like half the time. He was the Spider-Man suit that was like kind of like blackish purple, but had like a yellow cape. That was the 2099 TV show that they made after the Spider-Man cartoon on Fox, which was one of the best, if not the best, superhero cartoons that had ever came out in the 90s, next to the X-Men show. And they made that show, and as funny as that show actually was so terrible, because they actually didn't have the rights to Miguel O'Hara, so they kept it Peter Parker, and they sent him into space, and there was like mutants and stuff, and it was a whole stupid thing. But the suit was always so cool, and the story they gave to Peter was so cool that I loved that one a lot. So he was definitely one of my favorite. There was. I think his name is like Doppelganger or Spider-Ganger. He was in there, so he had the teeth and he had the Spider-Man costume on. And so like he was so cool to see. Honestly, there's so many Spider-Man from the comics that I was so happy. Even the second Spider-Woman was there. I forget her name. It's not Jessica Drew. It was another one, blonde hair with the black Spider-Man suit. Like they just had so many awesome Spider-Man that it was so hard to pick. But I was a fan of Peter Park's car.
Peter Park car. I love it. That's awesome, man.
That was good. That was really cool. I dug a lot what they did. It was incredible to have all that.
Gotcha. Al, you got to tell me, man, what was your favorite Peter Parker that you saw out there?
I don't know if I could say I had a favorite one, because that whole scene where they were just running through the academy or whatever they call that place.
Right.
And like you say, you see Peter Parker, the Spider-Man that was on the horse, where even Miles Morales is like, why is the horse wearing a mask? You have Hobie, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
They're in the elevator, he takes off the mask and Miles Morales looks at him and he goes, how are you cooler without the mask? Like, that. Then you have the dinosaur Spider-Man. You had the cat Spider-Man. Kid, I'm like, what kind of? There isn't a Spider-Man that's not portrayed here. Like there's every version, every type. So I just, I want to see it again so I can go through that scene, slow motion or pause, and try to get all of the Spider-Man in the background.
I'm telling you, that's why we got to own it, Al. We got to own it.
Kid. I'm getting the Ultra 4K version when it comes out.
There you go.
I was hoping that the Spider-Man voice from the 1990s animated show would talk in this one.
Gotcha. Yeah, man.
He was incredible.
I think for me, listen, Hobie stole some of the show there, man, because I think especially when Hobie was like, fight the establishment, like, and even when Peter B. Parker's, Peter B. Parker's daughter too, how adorable.
Mayday Parker.
She was amazing. She's like, I think Mayday just pooped. He's like, that's right. Poop on the establishment. I love Hobie, man. Hobie was awesome. Go ahead, Val.
I was just going to say, the funny one for me was Lego Spider-Man when he's making the beep, boop, bop, boop sounds. Like he's making the sound.
Yeah, man. Kid. So I love that one, man. Hobie was cool. Listen, I love the PS4, PS5 Spider-Man game. So to see the white spider with the regular suit from the video game, like it was legitimately the video game character was on the screen. Like the pixelated everything. So it was amazing to see him on there. Listen, T-Rex Spider-Man was a little ridiculous.
But Tara Parker.
the cat, that was awesome. There was a lot of cool Spider-Man to see out there. And again, a lot of references to a lot of the outfits that I've seen. And again, the Peter Parker game. I'm not Peter Parker. I'm sorry. The Spider-Man PS4 game. A lot of the suits they were showing in there as well. The original, the animated, like from a long, long time ago, Spider-Man, he even glitched out in mid-swing. So that was awesome. Just so many different Spider-Man. And it was great to see all of them. To be honest with you, if anything, I missed seeing Spider-Ham. He wasn't really part of that scene except when they were all kind of like ganging up a little bit. but he kind of disappeared. I didn't see Spider-Man Noir to the end. But there was a Spider-Man, and I think her name is Spider Bite, which was the avatar that the girl was in her room with the 3D, like the almost like the Google 3D the virtual reality glasses on.
Yeah.
Was it Spider Bite?
Spider Bite.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty cool too in there, and I love the way that she kind of looked out for Miles towards the end. But yeah, Spider-Man 2099 kind of was amazing too. But I again, just like Al said, there really can't be like a favorite because they were all just spectacular, man. I love seeing that. But with that scene also, and even in the entire movie, there was a bunch of little Easter eggs. And I think one of the bigger Easter eggs there were the villains that were in the background. And one of the villains, of course, that you're going to hear about is going to be the Miles's uncle in the real Spider-Verse, in the real MCU that showed up, which is played by Donald Glover.
Donald Glover, yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was so crazy cool to see. I mean, Al, what did you think when they panned the screen and he pulled over and ran right, like the camera right at him?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great because, like we said, we knew that was a reference to him in Homecoming. So to give him an actual representation, show him as the character in this, because they in the movie they touch on Toby, they touch on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
and their story. So I felt like this was their way of bringing in the current Spider-Man. Even though I get, did Tom Holland not want to be a part of this, or because they didn't?
I just think they didn't write it in until yet. I'm sure, Al. Sure, it'll be some way, in some form, part of Part 3. There's no way.
So, yeah, but I thought that was a good way of bringing his universe into the story without doing so. And is that their way of hinting that there will be a live action Miles Morales in the MCU by confirming that. Yeah, because remember, he goes, "Oh, I got a nephew in that neighborhood." Right. So the fact that you now confirm that he is that who we thought he was, is this their hint to us that don't worry, we have the live action Miles coming. So I thought that was pretty cool to incorporate him live action. Not that they drew his face to look like him. Right. They actually put him in the movie.
Yeah. And B, how about for you, man? What was your favorite little Easter egg there? I mean, there was so many with all the different deaths of Spider-Man. Again, the whole thing with Donald Glover. They had the Andrew Garfield and the Tobey Maguire death of Uncle Ben, and also the Captain Gordon there. What was your favorite Easter egg seeing in the background there?
Honestly, I really loved that scene with the Prowler with Donald Glover, just because I love how far that's come. For those who don't know, Donald Glover, when he was doing stand-up, he got noticed and got on the show called Community. And it's a comedy show, and it was a really funny show about community college. And in that show, they had the people on Reddit and stuff had been throwing his name around for Spider-Man back when Andrew Garfield, just before that announcement for the Amazing Spider-Man. And people were throwing his name out there, and he was all for it. So in one of the episodes, they even did something about it. He put on a Spider-Man suit on and was making some jokes about being Spider-Man. Yeah. And he actually was going for it at one point. And, when he didn't get it was Donald Glover, everyone was really disappointed. Right. And then just to see he got the cameo in what was it, No Way Home? Homecoming, yeah. He got the cameo in Homecoming. Then they actually let him be the voice of Miles in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. So just to see how much they've given him in terms of Spider-Verse and being like, hey, listen, we all would have loved you as Spider-Man. You didn't get it, so we're going to let you keep having this and let it see where it goes. I think it's been an awesome thing for him. So that was really, I love that. I think one of my favorite ones too was when they were going through all the villains they caught, and they were like, And the regular rhino.
The boring rhino.
The boring rhino.
How about Moose Stereo?
Who's stereo?
It was a moose in the Mysterio outfit. Fantastic. Oh, a cartoon moose at that. So it's just crazy. Yeah, also we can't forget that the Spot went into the Venomverse.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty funny. I mean,
lots of nods to symbiote in this movie.
Yeah, I really would have appreciated seeing Venom in there or something like that. But again, it's Miles Morales' story. We didn't want to, take away from that stuff. So, listen, so many great things in the movie. Is there anything that you guys think that was missing or something that you didn't get that you wanted in this movie? Like personally, for me, I did want to see more villains. The villains in this movie pretty much came across to either be Spot, and I guess the way that they played Miguel O'Hara's character and the Spider-Man going after Miles Morales, they weren't the villain per se, but they were almost like the antagonist in the story. So there really wasn't a lot of quote unquote villains in this movie. That was really my only kind of like disappointment in the movie, not to see like the Sinister Six, or they were mentioned in the background, but didn't see any other villains besides the Spot and the villains that were being held in the Spider Society there. B, was there anything that was like kind of a letdown for you that you would have liked to see, or not really?
I honestly, I wish that after we got the scene with the Spot talking about, going back to kill his father, I wish we had a couple more scenes with the dad from there.
Gotcha.
But that was really it. Everything else I think worked really well. I too would have liked to see more villains, but I think the way the story was going, I didn't think they could fit it. Maybe in the next one we might see the Sinister Six cartel. So I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
How about for you, Al? Anything that didn't live to your expectations or something that you would have wanted to see in the movie?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily didn't meet my expectations, but seeing that they were going, in the movie, they explained that all of the Spider-Men experience a loss. And that's what motivates them, I guess, to become the Spider-Man, to become the better Spider-Man. So when they showed that for Miles, it was going to be his father, I thought that it would have been better if it had been the mother. Only because, we repeatedly
You're a son of a bitch, Al.
No, only because throughout the movie, the more emotional bonds that are portrayed were between him and the mother. Like more of the emotional one-on-ones were between him and the mother. Like you said, that when he's on the roof and the mother comes to him, and even though he was punished, she goes, "You know what? Go after her." Like that was him and the mother. He didn't have that emotional one-on-ones with the dad. Like Brandon points to the scene on the roof, it was more comical. Get off my ass! Like it was more of that.
Right.
So if you're gonna make it that the moment that motivates Miles is the loss of his father, I would have liked to have seen more of those emotional conversations between Miles and the father.
That's why I wanted more of him. Yeah.
Yeah. To show that why we feel that Miles is like, no, I'm not losing my dad. Like obviously nobody wants to lose their dad, but let us see it in the movie.
Right.
Whereas you had more of those scenes with the mom. So if you're going to do those many scenes with the mom, then not that I wish it was the mom, but it would have made more sense story-wise than if it was that he lost his mother.
Gotcha.
So instead of Aunt May, just be that he lost his mom. But hopefully they can show more of these scenes in the third one, and that will explain why that becomes the motivating factor of why he needed to lose his father. And because like they say, they have to, otherwise that universe gets eaten or destroyed or breaks down. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it out in the third one.
Yeah, I completely get that, Al. That makes a lot of sense, man. And let's bring it home from here. I mean, because again, this is all part of the main part of the story is this Spider Society trying to stop Miles Morales from going to save his father. Al had mentioned earlier they were on this train to the moon, and Miles Morales finds a way to get back to the Spider Society after leaving all the Spider-Men behind. And he gets sent back to his quote unquote time or his timeline because of the DNA in his body. However, they kind of hinted at throughout the movie, the spider that bit Miles Morales was from a different universe, from Universe 42. hinting at why the 42 was on that spider, why that spider looked different. So Miles gets sent to Universe 42. Some people didn't realize it. Some people did. I was one of those people that did not realize he got sent to the wrong universe. When I realized he was sent to the wrong universe, I was like, oh shit, but there was people who was like, I saw that coming a mile away. So, I was one of those that they got.
Well, it said on the machine when it was being sent home, it said 42 on it.
Oh, the beep boop, beep boop, beep boop. So Spider-Man 42. So yeah, he goes to the wrong universe where his dad is the one that's passed away. And of course, he's trying to now figure out what to do. His uncle's alive. His uncle takes him to the rooftop. And sure enough, he gets knocked out. And what ends up being is his version of him in Universe 42 or Spider-Verse 42. Miles Morales is the Prowler in this one. So we have ourselves pretty much Miles Morales stuck in Universe 42 trying to get home to save his dad. We have Gwen Stacy trying to form her own little mini Spider Society to help Miles, which is a beautiful thing because she brings in Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, the Avatar Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. And then you have Spider B. Parker, Mayday, and Peter B. Parker there with Gwen. And I think Hobie was there also, which is going to be awesome. We have Spider-Man 2099. We have Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. And we also had the Scarlet Spider waiting for Miles Morales to show up to save his dad so they can stop him. We also have the Spot coming out of nowhere to show up in the normal Miles Morales universe to kill the dad. So, and we leave on that cliffhanger right there, which was absolutely crazy and amazing because, again, this movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And at that moment in time, when I saw all of that stuff happen, I'm like, please don't end. Please don't end right here. But it definitely left a beautiful cliffhanger, unlike Fast X. So, I mean, B, talk to me, man. What did you think of this cliffhanger and where are we going from here, my friend?
Oh, it was perfect. It was perfect. If there has ever been a cliffhanger, that was it.
Right.
Like, hot damn. Honestly, I feel like, where we leave off with him being face to face with himself, I feel like there's something he's going to bring up to Miles, the Prowler Miles, that allows them to work together. And right. I am kind of hoping that Earth 42 allows us to see the Sinister Six cartel. I think that'd be a nice little passerby thing. Like maybe he helps them in some circumstance. Maybe his mom gets kidnapped by one of the Sinister Six, right. Whatever it is, and he helps them. But I think the Prowler Miles comes back to help and becomes one of the spider people. It seems like it was insinuated that Earth 42's Spider-Man was actually supposed to be Miles in the first place.
Right.
In a quick flashback, when the Spot is showing his kind of like whole thing, it actually shows that Miles with the braids in the scene next to the spider.
Right. The spider was supposed to bite him.
So it was supposed to bite him. And so I think that the Prowler Miles is going to join the spider people to help Miles. I feel like we're going to get some badass fight scene between the spider people before we get to the Spot. And I think Miguel O'Hara is going to sacrifice himself to stop the Spot.
Wow. Brandon's right in the ending. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, right at the end.
Now let me hear Al, because I'll be writing some fucking poetry. I don't know if you be listening to the podcast, but Al be saying some shit and I'm like, this guy's a genius. Go for it, Al. What do you think about that ending and where do we go from here, Al?
I was thinking along the same lines as B, like, because I didn't get the vibe that he was like this evil mastermind. I mean, I thought it was cool because obviously the uncle comes in, he sees Miles, but that's not his Miles, so he knows right off the bat something's up.
Right.
So he brings him in and
because his name's a bandolero, apparently.
Yeah.
¿Cómo está? Yo soy Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Miles Morales.
So it'll be cool if they could play it out like that. Like they don't turn out to be enemies; they turn out to be allies because Miles is good wherever he is. I
Right.
don't want them to do the bad Miles versus good Miles. I hope they don't do that. I
No.
just hope it's Prowler, but he's a good Prowler in this universe, as opposed to given especially the nature of the town, because it looked like everything was going to shit around them. So it would be cool if he was like their Spider-Man, but as Prowler because he didn't get bit. And then just from there, bringing the whole group together, like you said, we got Spider Noir back, we got Spider Ham back. The girl with the robot was there too.
Yeah.
And just to play it out and see what they do. Now, I do think they're going to do the loss. So that'll be interesting to see that scene play out. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Spot that takes him. I think it's going to be the father sacrificing himself to save Miles against Spot. And then, so he does still end up realizing that loss. And I think that they'll end it with that in terms of the motivation to become the better Spider-Man and so forth. So it'll be because I would not that I want them to kill the father off,
Right.
but all this, like they say, all the Spider-Men have this loss. So I think they would. To me, I would like to see them continue that, and then how he responds to that loss. And not always be the victor. And then show how he responds and grows from that. So even though he tried, he failed, he still experiences a loss, and then how he bounces back from that in terms of, resiliency and motivation to do better in honor of the father. So I would love to see that play out. Because then otherwise there's no consequence. And we've always said that with movies. If there's no consequence, then what's the point of the challenge of the fight that they're going through if there's never a consequence?
Yeah.
So, it'll be a difficult scene to portray, but they've shown that they can handle it despite being an animated movie, the severity of some of these emotions that they're portraying. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they portray it. Not that I'm looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they portray it and how those emotions come off, how they display it. Because again, one of the greatest things that I've seen them doing so far in this movies is expressing the emotion through the visual as well as the dialogue. So that's one of the things I'm looking to see. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong with that one.
No, and for me, thinking about the movie and the way it's been written so far, I think what they're going to try to do, honestly, is let Miles have his way, where he does end up saving his dad and saving the day, and letting people know, like, hey, that's your story. This is my story, and I'm going to make it work my way. So I do think that we will have a loss, but I think personally the loss is going to probably be Spider-Man 2099 or maybe even Spider-Man B. Parker. I'm sorry, Peter B. Parker, maybe losing his life or something like that. I mean, I don't know where it's going, honestly. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's crazy because the Spot right now seems like an OD character. Like he's he's too powerful right now. He has the access to the multiverse. So I just can't even imagine where they're going to go with it and what they're going to do with it. And I don't know. As a writer person, I couldn't even imagine what do we do to defeat this guy? Like we put a great ending. Now, where do we go from here? Because I can see the beautiful story in the beginning is going to be. First of all, I agree with you. I don't believe for one second that the Prowler Miles Morales is a bad guy, because that same Miles Morales was going to be bitten by that spider. So I think he is like a vigilante, maybe a little hardcore, but definitely a good guy in the sense that maybe he's cracking down on the Sinister Six. And I think that the way that they played it out was like, oh, he's a bad guy, but I think when we get to the next movie here, he's just like making sure that the Sinister Six didn't do something and set him up with this new Spider-Man Miles Morales. He doesn't know who he is and what's he doing there. So I do think that the first scene or the first big battle we're going to see in that Spider-Man 42 universe is Miles Morales, the Prowler, versus the Sinister Six. And I can't wait to see it because I think they're going to have more villains in the next one, or at least let us see some villains or something that happens with that. And then, like you guys both said, the battle that's going to happen between Spider-Man 2099 or the other Spider-Man versus this little crew of Spider-Man to help Miles Morales. I mean, I just can't wait to see this freaking movie. It's going to be spectacular, dude. I cannot wait. 1 year. Unbelievable. Why not 6 months? Yes. What do they say? Take my money. Take it. Listen, you guys hear us talking about this movie. We love this movie. We could go on and on and on about this movie. So listen, to end the podcast, I'm going to ask one last question in regards to the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and other movies dealing with multiverse. We won't get into a prep for Transformers because it's getting a little late here. So let's just go ahead and just say, like, well, we're looking forward to Transformers. Next podcast, review of Transformers. But I do want to end on this question, B. There have been Loki season 1. We had Spider-Man No Way Home. We had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We had, what else here? We had now Across the Spider-Verse. We had, what's that movie that won all those awards with the multiverse?
Oh, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I feel like The Flash coming up is going to do multiverse as well. With all these different multiverse stories and multiverse lore and all these things that's going on lately, B, how do you feel, or who do you feel has handled the multiverse the best? Do you feel that Across the Spider-Verse kind of made it clear and a better understanding of the multiverse and how it works? Or do you feel like something else has done it a little bit better? And which one do you appreciate more?
I would say that this movie, Across the Spider-Verse, was the best telling of the multiverse. And then the especially the way it described canon events, and the thing that gets me though is that it's not the same way they're describing the multiverse in the MCU itself. And that's what's getting me, because I thought this was the perfect explanation. When we think about the Nexus events, there's the other thing now that was in Doctor Strange. When the two worlds are into each other too long, they explode. I forget what that's called.
Right. I forgot the word was, but yeah, like the convergence or
convergence. Yeah. So we have in the MCU, we have timelines, because apparently everything is time as well. We have multiverse, which leads into Nexus events, which leads into convergences, right? At this point in time,
incursions.
Thank you. Incursions. Yeah. At this time, they still don't make any goddamn sense. And then in this movie, when they started explaining the multiverse, they actually pulled up the tree, that timeline tree.
Yeah.
As the kind of connection is like, oh, this is how they're explaining the multiverse in terms of Spider-Man. Canon events, I feel, are the same or close to Nexus events in some way, shape, or form. It's just, I felt this movie really explained it, but it just doesn't explain the MCU's multiverse. And I wish it did a better job of doing that, because because the MCU needs it. The multiverse makes no sense right now in MCU. And then just across everywhere else, I think the thing that makes it's hard to explain, because the multiverse in the MCU comics makes tons of sense. Right. The multiverse in DC makes so much sense. It's just basically, hey, you made an alternate Earth because of X, Y events. You flip a coin, this is always going to happen. And now this happens somewhere else, and this happens somewhere else. The MCU they had too many people in the hat for it, and they all explained it some way that made sense to them, and it didn't make sense to any of us. And now it's still going, and it just doesn't make sense. And so they have to take one of these movies now, maybe even Kang Dynasty, and reel it back in somehow.
Right.
Because now there's a multiverse problem there, but everywhere else, the multiverse makes sense.
Gotcha, man. And you know what? Not for nothing. I think there's some similarities between all the Marvel movies. Like, I don't know if you guys remember in Mumbattan when they messed up the canon event, there was actually like almost like a black hole or a black smudge
like an
in the
incursion.
bottom. Right, almost like an incursion thing again. And that was also in the What If episode of Doctor Strange, which was amazing. That What If episode for Doctor Strange, where the incursions was black mud also. And then in the movie for Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, when he went into that world that was going through the incursion as well, you saw the black mold or black must. So it looks like there's some similarities in there. Again, it's just the way that people are describing it to each other in the movies, which is kind of confusing when you put it in total. But when you put it to each in particular movie, I agree with you, B. I think Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse did it the best as far as explaining, because not every universe has a Spider-Man either. So it's like the ones that do, those are connected by the Spider-Verse, but even then there's multiverse. And I got that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Al, how about yourself, man? Which movie, TV show, or what do you think is handling the multiverse thing that's going on lately in movies the best?
Well, the one I originally was enjoying the most was the Loki version with the timeline, and time is not linear; it can go backwards and so forth. And basically each of these timelines was a branch caused by somebody making a decision they weren't supposed to. So I liked that idea. And it kind of is a similar situation here in Spider-Verse. We have a branch where, because remember, Miles was the original anomaly because of the fact that he got bit by a spider that wasn't supposed to be in his universe. So he then created all of the subsequent anomalies throughout the Spider-Verse. But it's a similar situation. It's something that has to happen. And if it doesn't, it creates this branch or it creates this issue, kind of like where he created the issue in Mombati, I think it was. Like it was like Manhattan, where he saves the chief from dying on the bridge. So now it affected that universe. Right. So I like so it's a similar situation where it's not, just all these multiple universes. There's also the commonality of the universe. So as much as each of them are different, there's still commonality, and it's something that ties all of them together. So I like that telling of the multiverse, and hope that there was some more consistency like that throughout all of these other stories of the multiverse that we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah, I do think that the way that they're handling here, I hope they kind of like bring some of that aspect into the other Marvel MCU, because I think it was very clear and well explained. I don't think anybody really got lost with it. So, but also, man, just wanted to one more note really quickly. I just really want to just curse out Spider-Man 2099 for constantly blaming Miles Morales for getting bitten by a spider that came in and bit him. Like dude, stop blaming him. Like, you don't belong, you're a mistake. I was like, dude, those are hurtful words. You're a good guy. Like, oh man,
he was digging in hard.
Oh, dude, he was being a dick.
And wasn't he the one that went and lived in another universe and lived
pretending to be the other one of him?
Yeah, that's worse.
Some nerve.
It's like that survivor's guilt.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely being put in for an award. Douchebag of the year. Jesus. Anyway, guys, that's going to be us for tonight, man. And I love doing these reviews to hear what these guys think, man. And it's always amazing and a good time. And it's always a good reminder, too, of the movie we just watched. So what did you guys out there think of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Was it as good for you as it was for us? Did you enjoy it? Who was your favorite Spider-Man? Shout out to the Indian Spider-Man. That was amazing. Mumbattan. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, kid, I can never order chai tea anymore. I'm just ordering chai.
And go figure. And then he goes, why do everyone say ATM machine? The M stands for machine. I love this movie, man. This movie was fantastic. Oh, man, listen, if you guys are not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button to the YouTube channel. We're trying to get to over 100 subscribers, so please hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to us on a podcast app, hit the plus symbol for us, the Real Fan Review, REEL. That way we come to you every single week when we put out a podcast. And listen, guys, next week's podcast will be a review of Transformers Rise of the Beast. And we are sorry we ran out of time today to give you a little prep for it. Just watch Bumblebee. So like that's the rule. Watch Bumblebee. That's it. That's your prep. So listen, saying good night from Long Island, New York. We are the Real Fan Review. My brother B.
Adios, everybody.
Our man in the chair, Al.
Have a good night, everybody.
And myself, Hob, saying good night, guys. We'll see you on the next podcast, the Transformer Rise of the Beast review. Until next time.